morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today on this Thursday, I believe, although my week is totally thrown off from having switched with Amber, and because I'm usually here on Wednesdays and she's here on Fridays, but we switched this week and it is very disorienting.
Yeah, we missed you yesterday, and also whenever you're not here, I feel like it's Friday, and so I was thrown off.
But so we're all in for a rude awakening because the news cycle marches on, and here we are.
But I brought you a treat because look at my outfit. I wanted to bring you a nice present.
You look like a Christmas
I'm
present.
the Christmas gift. It's actually cold in D.C., so I was preparing for this freezing weather. I didn't wear a coat today, but I saw you had a nice pea coat on.
Yeah, I know because I scoot everywhere that the second the temperature falls below like 72 degrees, I'm in my full winter coat garb. I go all the way. There's no in between. Well, you can't really wear like a light jacket with a suit. It doesn't work. So
yeah,
it's pea coat or nothing.
A lot to think on the scooter.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming up on Rising, we'll discuss how DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is bashing country music star Zach Bryan for his song that criticizes ICE.
Plus, President Trump says that the first phase of a peace agreement between Israel and Hamas has been reached. Yay, that's great news.
That is, and the California gubernatorial race just got a bit more interesting after candidate Katie Porter threatened to walk out of an interview with a local reporter.
It was a wild clip.
It was.
Talk about that one.
But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
All righty, Senator Rand Paul is criticizing the Trump administration for blowing up alleged drug smuggling boats. Here he was explaining to Bloomberg TV why he's so concerned about this.
About 25% of the time, the boat that they board doesn't have drugs on it. So they have made an error, but they don't kill them. But we've blown up 4 boats now, and if the percentages hold true, did one of those 4 boats not have drug dealers on it? If they all had drug dealers on it, the first 11 they killed, what were their names? What was the evidence linking them to being part of a gang? So I think there's a lot of unknowns here, and I don't think you can have a universal Coast Guard policy of just blowing up boats before they're interdicted.
Seems like a pretty reasonable point to me. I, for one, am glad that one of the only principled civil libertarians in Congress is asking questions about the administration's new policy of simply blowing up ships in the Caribbean on suspicion of smuggling drugs between Venezuela and other countries, in some cases not even the U.S. This is all happening, by the way, of course, as the Maduro regime of Venezuela is increasingly vulnerable. Nicolas Maduro is a reprehensible dictator, no way around it. His failed socialist policies have impoverished his country and immiserated his people. There's a lesson in that. Socialism does not work. We shouldn't try it here. We shouldn't try it in New York City. Maybe someone should tell New York voters that before they elect Zohran Mamdani, but I digress. Here's the thing, though. Just because Maduro is bad doesn't mean the U.S. has some obligation to dethrone him. Time and time again, we have toppled dictators in vain, misguided hopes that they will be replaced with pliant U.S.-supporting governments. How's that working out lately? Did it work out in Iraq? Did it work out in Libya? Maybe it's working out in Syria. A lot of people are still dying in that country as the new regime takes power. Now, I'd be very happy if Venezuelans did overthrow Maduro and replace him with someone like Argentina's Javier Milei. That'd be great. But if the U.S. installs a replacement, we could end up making the problem worse, as we did in the Middle East over and over again. Now, I know it's not the exact same circumstance, but in any case, the U.S. can't take this action, overthrowing their government, without a declaration of war. It is not the president's role to unilaterally take action against foreign governments or drug smugglers and so on without a proper act of Congress. Congress has to vote. Doesn't matter that Congress has no interest in doing its job whatsoever. We can't simply ignore the Constitution. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I'm grateful to Rand Paul that at least there's one senator who still remembers that.
Well, I like that sentiment. I think I will even go further than you because I think I agree with Adam Schiff, who said, these strikes risk escalating into a full-blown conflict with Venezuela. And we've now skipped over congressional power multiple times, which I think is not a precedent that we want to set in this country. The president has not gone to Congress and put this as a counterterrorism mission instead of a counter-narcotics mission, which has been for decades in our country. And post 9/11, terrorism and the word has been so deeply attached to action that he's bypassed a lot of people that he would need to get approval from to blow up boats. I mean, that is an act of war. And there's a lot of concerning things surrounding this, which makes me not believe this is a one-off, from naming the Department of Defense, the Department of War, to the 12-day Iran war that we got in and quickly ended. There's a lot of actions that I think has bipartisan agreements that Americans don't want to be involved in foreign conflicts. So we shouldn't skip over Congress for this. And not to say that terrorism is not something that we should combat. I mean, that narcotics isn't something that we should combat with full force of our country, but we shouldn't just put it under the label of terrorism so that the president has the ability to do whatever, whenever, especially when you have critics on both sides of the aisle. And like you said, Rand Paul is being pretty level-headed about this. We can't just blow up ships because if one civilian was on there. It's the same thing I said about Qatar. I can't point one finger at Israel for, killing people during peace talks, and then we're killing anybody that's innocent. If there's 1 in 4 boats that possibly didn't have narcotics on them, then we just killed innocent civilians that were.
Yeah, what is not terrorism at this point? They call everything. Terrorism, and people on the right correctly started to push back, in my view, when right-wing, militia groups and the J6ers and all that, right, they're being classified as terrorists. That's being used as a pretext for civil liberties violations and free speech violations. And I'm like, okay, you understand that now, right? So that means next time we have power, we're going to scale back some of this war on terror era overclassification, domestic surveillance, and all that. And in fact, no, we're continuing it, we're increasing it, we're doing it, we're pretending that, it's the ocean, so we can just do whatever we want. It's the ocean, so we just blow people up. I don't think, I know it's not, it's international waters, but I don't think it's like some no man's land where if you set one toe in the ocean, you are subject to just being wiped out if they think you're smuggling drugs. Maybe the intelligence is good. Maybe these are all obviously drug smugglers who are trying to, get fentanyl into our allies or countries or into our country. One would hope some kind of evidence of that has to be presented to the relevant lawmaking authorities, and then they'll give authorization and say, okay, you are authorized to do this. That's how our government is supposed to work. Congress just doesn't even exist anymore.
And J.D. Vance also was very supportive of this policy not even policy,
right.
This action that Trump took.
What about no new wars? That's what they ran on, no new wars.
Right, exactly. And so some people think that it's despicable because we're skipping over the entire idea of due process in case there is anyone on the ship that is innocent and actually doesn't have narcotics on them. Also, applying a new label to an old problem is not a solution, right? Drugs being smuggled into our country is a big issue, and we need to figure out how to solve it. And maybe that's something where Congress, where we both agree, which can do a much better job working together, can figure out a solution. Like Amber brought up an example yesterday last week of a mom in Ohio that would really be adamant about having this type of action immediately because her kid may or may not have taken fentanyl that was smuggled into this country. And while that's appropriate and important to address for leaders of constituents, the way to go about it is to talk to your congressional leaders and have them talk to the president and come up with bipartisan legislation on how we handle things like this, especially when we need to consider due process and bring these people to justice the right way.
Well, and we have been vigorously prosecuting a war on drugs for our entire lives. The U.S. government has been waging war on cartels, on on people who are addicted to drugs, on suppliers for drugs. All that serves to do is make the black market for these drugs more lucrative. Dead drug dealers, we can't kill, we've tried to kill them all, doesn't work, makes the sale, the business of the product more profitable, and has contributed to Mexico being in part a failed state and other South American countries without it making a significant dent in the drug empire. So I think there's a lesson there, and we're doing exactly what the drugs want.
Right, and
if the drugs had a will of their own to make them more expensive.
Right. We're going to talk about this a lot more because I'm sure it's not the last ship that we had this incident with.
Next up, President Trump is railing against Antifa, as well as the mayor of Chicago. We'll be looking at his comments right after this.